This movie tells a story about a Danish family who visits a Dutch family they met on a holiday. What was supposed to be a wonderful weekend slowly starts unraveling as the Danes try to stay polite in the face of unpleasantness. Unfortunately, the script contorts itself to create that unpleasantness, contriving a sequence of events that never feels natural or organic until it ends with shock value that neither feels earned nor worthwhile. The movie is bleak and gruesome, but ultimately empty. It's rather stylish and boldly cynical, but the core is really hollow. It wants to be both social satire and a thriller. Sadly, it doesn't quite come together. The movie is very blunt on its message and how the complacency can eat you alive if push comes to shove. It hides the horror for as long as possible, focusing instead on the increasingly uncomfortable dynamics between our protagonist and Dutch couple Patrick and Karen. For a good stretch, the movie plays as queasy satire of conditioned interpersonal behavior while walking a tightrope of suspense over whether anything sinister is actually at play here. The psychosocial terror arising from Bjorn and Louise finding themselves unable to extract themselves from their temporary lodgings. Rather than being explicitly intimidated by Patrick and Karen into staying, our main characters are paralyzed by their own duty to politeness into remaining in a situation that feels increasingly amiss. It's the strange obligation to people we barely know, accepting the weird things and odd behavior we encounter, because to question or challenge it would be rude. It doesn't really explain why they still decide to stay, even after the host clearly showing that they're not respecting their guests. It's not as if their car has been broken, only their insistence on remaining polite that keeps them there. The movie is extremely dedicated to their characters being unable to act when needed. The real problem with this movie is that it takes this inability to act to a shocking place without earning it naturally. This inability is both frustrating and essentially the only mantra for writing these characters. The movie refuses to let anyone behave beyond their programmed theme, making the characters feel forced, unnatural, and inhuman. The movie spends an excessive amount of time establishing the constantly moving tolerance threshold for Bjorn and Louise. By the time it all comes to a head, the pitch-black cynical finale comes up far too late and too brief, so it feels really hollow. The intent is that the catastrophic outcome for these characters takes a long time to reach a boiling point. The problem is that everything that transpired was preventable, and untaken exit doors litter the journey. There's not much to grab a hold of, no rooting interest to invest in this story, and no tension or suspense beyond a constant sense that something's amiss. The contrived series of actions that clutter the film's final stretch feel like a familiar ploy for cheap suspense. Overall, this movie is simply frustrating and pointless. We do not recommend this movie at all.